40 years ago, we opened our doors with one mission in mind.
We'll be right back with the top 10 songs of 1983.
To sell quality American-made vehicles at a fair price.
You have arrived.
And we've loved every minute of the ride. Celebrating 40 years of Two Rivers Ford.
What's happening? Welcome in. Happy Tuesday morning to you. Lovely to have you here for the next 3 hours and, just about. 615-737-1045. Get in there if you want to. We've got a lot of time to discuss a variety of different topics. Titans-related, football in particular, today. Lucas is back there making it happen. Robert is probably going to be back there at some point throughout the course of the next 3 hours. And we will certainly have time to talk about what the Titans free agents had to say, specifically the defensive guys, in just a few moments. But meanwhile, we've been so hyper-focused on all things local, whether it's what's happening in the NCAA tournament, Vols in the Sweet 16, what is going on with the Titans in free agency, that it's been a little while since we kind of took a look around the division in particular and paid attention to some of the moves that were made. You didn't know when we spoke this morning, right, that the Texans had added both Dalton Schultz and Devin Singletary?
Yeah, that came down yesterday afternoon, right, around 5 o'clock. I had not seen that until this morning. I like those moves from Houston.
I agree. I do agree. Schultz's deal worth up to $9 million, according to the NFL Network, who first reported that deal. Singletary worth up to $3.75 million, so a value play for a role player behind Dameon Pierce, who is going to be their bell cow. Now, Houston has the most amount of resources, both financially and draft capital-wise, to try and kickstart this thing. Now, I don't know until I know who their quarterback's going to be, and even then I'm not going to know. I don't know how much it's going to take for them to do or to try and do what the Jags did last season, where you're the worst team in football, even with Trevor Lawrence. You understand everything that was swirling around the Jags under Urban Meyer, and they come back with Doug Peterson. They win 9 games. They win the division in a last-second game-changing play, or last-minute game-changing play. Strip sack Josh Dobbs, take it to the house. Everybody is thriving. It was always the Jags, right? That's what the sign says. That's what the signs said in the stands at TIAA Bank Stadium that evening. It was always the Jags. You win a playoff game. You do all these things. And you leave the team that has been ruling the roost over the division kind of looking around, scratching their heads, en route to their 7th straight loss. I don't know if the Houston Texans are going to be capable of doing that in year 1 or in year 2. I don't know how DeMeco Ryans is going to handle his first head coaching opportunity and how long it's going to take to iron out some of the things that always come associated with somebody having their first job that way. But I know they're very well equipped to do something like that. I'm sitting here looking around at the moves being made right now, and we have an NFL draft to go through. We have post-draft free agency. We have undrafted rookie free agency. We've got all kinds of opportunities to see teams add players. But at least in the post-free agency first couple of waves, I'm looking around at Indianapolis, Jacksonville, Houston, and Tennessee, and wondering to myself, both internally and aloud, do the Titans have the worst offense in the division still? Do these two down tremendous franchises, the Colts and the Texans, have they found a way to kind of maneuver past the Titans while Tennessee works on building from the ground up, really? Offensive line, linebackers, and pass rushers. Pass rush, little sexy. Add a corner there, 25 years old, Sean Murphy-Bunting. You feel pretty good about putting him in the middle of that group. However, the playing time is going to work out. Well, remains to be seen, but nothing wrong with more corners and improved depth. But the things that kind of, give you the juice, the biggest question that we've had going into this offseason is the Titans on offense. What are they going to do? Left tackle Andre Dillard for now. We'll see which guard position Daniel Brunskill ultimately ends up playing. And Aaron Brewer being back on a tender means that he is probably going to start at center for this team. So for the most part, you've got your biggest problem area, at least groundwork-wise, in place. Now you've got to continue to build a foundation under it and around it to make sure that it can be supported throughout the course of a 17-game NFL regular season, and then, of course, the postseason, should you make it.
And no surprise that that was their priority offensively this offseason.
And should be. Should be, full stop. But it's not a terribly sexy skill position draft. Now, there's some fun running backs. There's a lot of different kinds of tight ends that will be available to you, and that's right up this franchise's alley, right? More tight ends, more running backs, more heavy personnel sets, as the modern NFL continues to evolve around them. Why not? And by the way, there's plenty of precedent for them to win in the modern-day NFL with the style of football that they've been playing with some necessary adjustments. And then there's the backup quarterback situation, which, for all the talk about the different ways that people would like the Titans to go about their quarterback position, they've just had an option taken away from them. Because as long as Jimmy Haslam is owning an NFL team, Josh Dobbs is going to get jobs. And by the way, he earned it. Dobbs signed a one-year deal with the Browns yesterday. So now your tanking quarterback solution that so many of you wanted to bring to the table, hell, many of you wanted him over Ryan Tannehill.
He'll probably have a significant shot at that backup job with Jacoby Brissett now where did Brissett go? Panthers?
That sounds right. No. Because Frank Reich is there. He's a Commander.
That's right.
I believe our boy Jake Brisket is a Washington Commander football skins team player. Either way, your backup quarterback situation kind of sucks. I don't know how to take the idea that Josh Dobbs is going to be a Brown next year and not a Titan. Because on the one hand, perhaps that's an endorsement of Malik Willis by a new administration and a coaching staff that felt it necessary to bench him after seeing a decent enough sample size of what he could, or more importantly, could not do in the offensive system that they're trying to run here, or at least they were trying to run last season. I don't know how much a new quarterback's coach is going to help further that progress and how many more strides he can make with training camp, the preseason, so much ahead of him before the 2023 season begins, but not a terrible amount of time to get this guy to the place that he needs to be. Now, I know he's been putting in work in the offseason, just like every other player. I know he's committed to getting better. I know that he is well-intended, that he's a hard worker, and all of these other things, Malik Willis, that is. But I know that what I saw from him last year is not good enough. And that in today's NFL, with this expanded regular season, there has never been a more important time to have a sustainable backup quarterback situation. You saw Cooper Rush went back to Dallas. You're seeing a couple of players like that. Andy Dalton continues to get jobs because coaching staffs trust him, even though he may be physically diminished and wasn't that high level of a player anyway. They have to get that solidified behind whomever starts this year. And it's looking increasingly like it's going to be Ryan Tannehill. So the questions on the offense are varied, and they continue to be really everything behind starting offensive line right now. I think they can, again, I don't know who's going to play left guard. I don't know who's going to play right guard. I don't know if that's going to be a draft pick, somebody who was already on the roster, or Brunskill, who the team just signed and is capable of starting at guard in the immediate. But with all these questions swirling around, I think that the Titans are currently in a position where they have the least talented offense in the division as we sit here today. And that's no small thing for them to try and correct when one of the teams already has their franchise quarterback in place. One more can probably add a higher level player at the quarterback position in this draft now that the Panthers have scooted up to first overall. And Indianapolis sitting around looking at 4. If they get through the draft and a feasible quarterback solution does not present itself, well, that's a team that should very much be in on the Lamar Jackson sweepstakes, which would bang you right out the gate. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in this morning. Jason in Nashville is first. Hey, Jason.
Morning, Buck. How y'all doing today?
Good, buddy.
Good. Hey, so you kind of hit on what I was calling about with the Josh Dobbs thing. I guess my question to you, Buck, do you think that they should have been just a little bit more aggressive? Because from what I understand, they gave him $2 million to go. I know that they're trying to cut corners and save money and plug a bunch of holes, but I just thought they wouldn't give him up for that amount, though. What do you think on that? Y'all have a good day.
Thanks very much. I mean, it's a 1-year, $2 million contract. The $2 million is guaranteed at this point, and his cap hit, I'm looking at Spot Track right now. The cap hit is at they don't have specifics about the cap hit right now, but either way, 1 year, $2 million is what the deal is being reported as. I mean, it's kind of like David Long being let go for 2 years, 11.5, right? That's a deal that people looked around and said, really, for that? That's what you let that guy walk for? That's what you let Josh Dobbs walk for? I don't know. I mean, listen, Josh Dobbs got his first NFL start in 2022, after coming into the league, in 2000, and Dobbs is
17.
17? There's a lot of different reasons why that can happen. He's been stuck behind talented players at the quarterback position, bounced around the league a little bit, and finally got an opportunity here in Tennessee. Went 0-2 in his 2 starts. So it's not like he's any revelation at the quarterback position, but he's a hell of a lot better than the sample size that we saw. And so for 1 year, $2 million, could you not better yourself in that quarterback room by keeping him around? Potentially there's options out there at this point. But that was something that clearly worked to an extent, needed help around it, but was able to function. And that was an improvement upon the product that we had seen when Malik Willis had been in the lineup to that point. So we'll continue to monitor these things, and let's get into a discussion about how free agency has changed the conversation around 11 overall. That's where the Titans are currently set to pick in this April's upcoming NFL draft in the first round. Do the free agent signings, to be grammatically correct, Do they change how you feel about 11 overall and what position you think the Titans should be prioritizing at this point? We'll talk about that coming up next. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone. We always like playing some of our friends' music around here. Our boy Joshua Clay, the band, The Reveal. What's the name of the song, Lucas?
This is Shadows Dancing on their newest EP.
Let me get a little more if I could. Ooh, I like it. Change it up a little bit. By the way, a very happy belated birthday. We're a couple of days late on this, but a very happy belated to our buddy Joshua Clay.
Happy birthday to him. I don't care. Good luck.
You can check out The Reveal in Apple Music and Spotify, YouTube as well, wherever you want to get your music. Okay, so free agency. How much has it changed the conversation around what the Titans should do at 11 overall? Now, depending on how you want to look at this, the needs are still many, and they are both frontline and depth related. You've at least got some clarity along the offensive line, some pieces in place as to how they're going to try and formulate this thing first and foremost. And if nothing else, what options they have should their future plans break down around them. Dillard at left tackle, Brunskill holding down one of the guard positions and able to play multiple positions across that offensive line. So I was looking at ESPN.com this morning, and Mel Kiper's got his latest mock draft out. And as you go through the different ways that Mel has adapted this thing since the Panthers traded up, the quarterback draft obviously affected. And C.J. Stroud, who has been Mel's first pick pretty consistently, regardless of whether it's been the Bears up there or the Panthers, C.J. Stroud is the best quarterback in this draft, according to Mel. Now, Mel has gone back and forth, it seems, with a lot of Will Levis love, a lot louder than a lot of people that, you know, have obviously watched him. Now, I think that after doing this job for so long, Mel Kiper is very well sourced in the NFL, so it's not like Mel is just spouting things for the sake of them about one of the best quarterback prospects in this draft, specifically Levis. But he has been higher on the Kentucky prospect than most. He's still got the Colts trading up to get Levis, with Arizona to 3rd overall, and then Arizona bumping back to 4 and selecting Will Anderson. But then there's the Titans at 11. How does all this movement affect the Titans? If I had to give you all the different positions on the board that you thought the Titans needed a player at, Lucas, where would you go with 11 overall? After 2 offensive linemen, 2 off-ball linebackers, 1 pass rusher, and 1 corner in free agency.
Still go tackle.
Now, what then if I told you that Skoronski and Paris Johnson Jr., Ohio State and Northwestern, are off the board? What then?
Then do you transition to best player available? Because I don't know that there's a wide receiver that you like enough to take with the 11th overall pick. There certainly would be tight ends that you would like enough to take with the 11th overall pick, potentially, especially if they don't pick up a free agent tight end.
I think there's a chance that we go 20 picks in this draft without seeing a wide receiver taken.
I agree.
I bet. Well, let me adjust that, because there are like teams like Seattle who have a top 10 pick and also a top 20 pick, and another top 20 pick rather. They have 20th overall. Seattle, I could see, even with DK Metcalf and Lockett under contract, I could see Seattle taking another wide receiver. So theoretically, you could see 1 wide receiver taken inside the top 20, but that's about as much as I'd expect. Because I'm still trying to figure out who the hell is wide receiver 1 in this draft class. Is it, by consensus, Jackson Smith and Jigba?
I don't know if there is a consensus.
Which is not ideal. It reminds me of that Corey Davis, Mike Williams draft. Who was the 3rd wide receiver taken by the Bengals?
It was John Ross, and that did not work out. Yeah, he had the 40 time, and then that was it.
Now, that one was different because you had teams like the Titans inside the top 5 who needed a wide receiver and were scared that one was going to pass them by. So they overdrafted Corey Davis after trying to trade out of that 2017 NFL draft.
Believe so. And that wide receiver draft wasn't nowhere near as deep as this one is.
No, that's true. There are functional players. It's just within the first round, you don't have anybody who's, I think, going to wow you. Jackson Smith-Njigba is probably the closest player to that. But again, the durability issues. I mean, he had 5 catches last season because of the hamstring injury, and that's not something a team like the Titans can afford to risk. They need impact players right away.
Yeah, that being a soft tissue deal might hurt Smith-Njigba when it comes down to it.
Not ideal. So let's say theoretically that one wide receiver gets taken in the top 20 picks, and both of the top offensive linemen are off the board because I think most people are looking at Paris Johnson Jr. as the best left tackle in this draft. Then you go to Skoronski, who is, depending on how you look at him, depending on which team is looking at him, is regarded as a tackle or a guard based on the lack of length that he displays. It's kind of a Jonah Williams problem that the former Alabama left tackle had and now is being asked for trade because, of course, they've just signed Orlando Brown in Cincinnati. Mel Kiper has them taking a defensive end. Tyree Wilson, the Texas Tech defensive end, and justifies it by Dillard and Brunskill coming in to compete for both or two of the four open jobs on the offensive line right now, which makes it less of a need. Now, I don't necessarily like the idea, and I can't speak to Rand Carthon, can't speak for John Robinson, or any other talent evaluator / personnel exec out there. But my position on first round is best player available always. Because the rest of the draft, how you put together the rest of the roster, matters so much more infinitely for the longevity and the sustainability of your team than the sex appeal of the first round pick. We've been over this before. Caleb Farley is a value play that they tried to make. So is Jeff Simmons. One panned out. The other obviously has not to this point. Best player available gives you the flexibility to continue to add talent at a place where it wouldn't necessarily hurt you to double up. Defensive line is not a bad idea in this case. We know Danico Autry's situation. He's in the last year of his contract. We're operating under the assumption that he will be retained, even though there's about $7 million in savings to be had should they release Danico Autry as he gets into his mid-30s. But without Jeff on a long-term extension, with Danico Autry on the last year of his deal, I understand the justification for taking a player like Wilson with that 11th overall selection, even though I'm sure most people pick their heads up and say, what, a defensive end? With needs at wide receiver, tackle, tight end, corner, pass rush.
Does Kiper have Paris Johnson gone at that point?
Yeah. He has him gone 2 picks before to the Chicago Bears, who desperately need that offensive line help, and have now traded back to where Carolina was and likely where the best left tackle in this draft can be had. They can probably get him at 9.
Wonder what would be more likely if that were the case. If Paris Johnson's off the board, Johnson and Skoronski by the 11th pick, what would be more likely, a trade back or best player available?
Well, I mean, I think that depends on how the draft board breaks down, right? That's kind of, and I know it's a little bit of a cop-out, but that's just always the best way, I think, to answer that question. You don't know what these teams are going to do once we get into this thing.
You don't know which prospects these teams are falling in love with in meeting rooms.
And you don't know which teams have just decided not to meet with prospects to try and keep the smoke screen up to the idea that maybe Chicago never sits down, never has Paris Johnson Jr. to their facility at Hallis Hall for one of their top 30 visits and takes him 9th overall because it's the draft and what the bleep else are you going to do? Right? So I don't want to not answer your question, but that's the best way that I know to answer it. Is I can't tell you what makes the most sense there at that point. I don't necessarily hate the Tyree Wilson thing. He's coming off a broken foot. That's not a soft tissue injury. That's something. It's like Derrick Henry's foot. Once it's healed, it's done. You don't have to worry about it. If he breaks a foot again, it's not because the foot, it's not because the foot has some kind of lingering situation. But Tennessee, the thing that they do best, or the thing that has made them, I think, most competitive in this AFC landscape is their ability to get pressure with 4. Can they make it even more hellish on quarterbacks by doubling down with Harold, with Arden Key, Jeff at least under contract for one more year, Weaver and a player like Tyree Wilson, who doesn't necessarily have to play all of the snaps but can absolutely make an impact? Is that what makes the most sense for them right now? Now, Mel, just specifically to this draft, would you rather have Tyree Wilson or Nolan Smith? Do you have a preference? Because Nolan Smith's technically on the board when the Titans pick at 11 in this mock draft.
And Nolan Smith had a fantastic combine.
Yes, and also is a very high-level player, though he is not necessarily regarded as like one of the one of the better prospects that we've seen in the last couple of years at outside linebacker, but he's certainly a player to be reckoned with and could make an impact, I would think, in that same situation. But they're both defensive players that we're talking about right now.
And things have worked out pretty well for Georgia defensive players in recent years in the league.
Well, the Jalen Carter being the outlier at this point. We'll see what happens with him. Did you see we haven't talked about his pro day. Did you see what happened at his pro day?
Yeah, not great.
He's 9 pounds heavier than he was at the combine, and he can't finish all the drills.
But I don't know how you can say Jalen Carter is the outlier there when he's not in the league yet. We'll see what happens when Jalen Carter enters the NFL. Nolan Smith obviously ended his season prematurely as well, coming off an injury, torn pectoral muscle in October.
Now, Houston is who picks directly after the Titans. So, depending on what positions or what players you're trying to keep away from your divisional opponents, I don't know how much more they might like Wilson versus Smith or vice versa, but I do think it's interesting to consider. Now, the next tackle off the board in this particular exercise is Broderick Jones from Georgia. And that is a player that they are mocking right now to the Jets. Mekhi Becton will be back because he's played just one game in the past 2 seasons with the injuries that he's had. They did try to sign Dwayne Brown, but he's going to be 38 by the time we get to preseason. So Broderick Jones makes a lot of sense for New York, who needs offensive line help as well. My preference would be offensive line help. If Skoronski happens to be there at 11, I'm not crazy about the idea of taking an interior player in the top. I mean, really in the first round, when you can find the Nate Davises of the world in the second and third. And this is an offensive line class that you can probably do that. But if best player available is that guard, and this is a team that so desperately needs that offensive line help, it's tough for me to talk myself out of anything but. Especially when skill positions look the way that they do right now. The Titans with only 6 draft picks to the Texans. I mean, they're literally getting doubled up. There's 12 draft picks now that the Texans have traded Brandon Cooks in just this year's draft that Houston has to the Titans 6. So they're going to have a lot more cracks at this thing than would a team like Tennessee. Man. It's a tough situation. And again, we'll see how the draft board plays out once we get into this thing in a little more than a month from now. But I don't know necessarily that it should change their priorities. I think it just emphasizes how much more help they still need on the offensive line, despite having at least 3 pieces in place, including Brewer, adding him to that mix.
But with all the additions in free agency, what now is the biggest question on the offensive line? Is it still left tackle, even though you have a potential starter there, or is it left guard where it's hard to find a potential starter at this point?
Why can't I say center?
You could say center. But I feel like, and we don't know this, but are we not both kind of on the same page here that the probability is that's Aaron Brewer's job in 2023?
What is Corey Levin's contract situation? I don't think he's under contract with them right now, but I can double check. He was. Now, maybe they didn't want to move Brewer from left guard at the time when they needed somebody to play for Ben Jones, not wanting to rob 2 positions to try and correct one after Ben went down, move Brewer over to center and try and figure out the guard situation, although they did have to do that at certain points. And obviously Jordan Ruse did play a fair amount of football for the Titans last year because Nate Davis was on IR too. I do not see on Over the Cap Corey Levin.
Levin was on a 1-year deal last year. He's a free agent.
So, yeah, I mean, I would think that without Levin under contract, that Brewer makes the most sense at center. But I do still think that that's an important position to have a definitive answer for. Outside of left tackle, I don't necessarily know that I consider it more important than left tackle, given how bad the left tackle situation was last year. But I think it's probably 1B to left tackle's 1A. Ben's durability and connection with Ryan Tannehill, even if Tannehill isn't the quarterback beyond this season, that is something that needs to be crisp. It needs to be something you don't worry about. Because for all the things that we talk about that derailed this team last year, what was a big thing that was an underlying theme throughout the course of the season, beyond injury and beyond lack of talent on the roster? Penalties, operational penalties. Whether Brewer is going to factor in a good way or a bad way to that, if Brewer ends up being the center, if the new offensive line takes a couple of weeks or takes a month or so to figure it out and get on the same page, how that works with a new offensive coordinator, all these different things. It's the kind of transitions that football teams go through each and every year in the pros. But I think those are all factors to take to that all variables that you have to take into account as you evaluate, all right, what's the most important thing for them to fix? What do they have? What don't they have? And how much further do they need to work to that effect? Giles says he thinks a lack of talent leads to penalties. I'm sure to some degree. Corners who get beat, they're going to have to commit pass interference to keep from getting beat, to give up a score. You'd rather take the penalty yardage and the flag than give up a touchdown in that spot. Maybe that's the way that you want to look at those kind of things. I think that the Eric White is alleging that the NFL hates Tennessee. That's why they get so many penalties. No, your football team was not terribly disciplined in the way that we associate Mike Vrabel coached teams being last season. And there were some moments, like the Cowboys game was just egregious. Like the Cowboys game, how lopsided the penalty situation was egregious. You can go back and find games like that for every team across any season, certainly in the modern day NFL, since we've made those a lot of those officiating changes. But, yeah, I do think that a lack of talent does contribute to how often a player gets beat and needs to commit a penalty or commits a penalty out of making a technical error, whatever the case may be. Speaking of making mistakes, what in sports made you say, oh, no, this weekend? 615-737-1045 is how you submit your nominees. Robert, Lucas, and myself will give you ours coming up next. Oh, goodness. What in sports made you say, oh, no, this week? 615-737-1045. Let us know what in sports made you say, oh, no. We got music?
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Oh, no!
Oh, no.
Oh, no!
Oh, no.
All right, let me start the bidding. My college basketball weekend and week has been absolutely hellish. It's not just because the University of Miami knocked my ass out of the round of 32. Not even close, the Indiana Hoosiers, but they got me again.
Again.
The damn Hurricanes. I've never had so much hatred for the U in my life, but last night, the number 9 seeded Miami Lady Hurricanes upset the number 1 seeded Indiana Hoosiers 70-68 to go to the women's Sweet 16 for the first time since 1992. So I can't get a men's win. I can't get a women's win. I was fired up to watch the women's tournament last night after prime time, after Robert was emasculated by the primetime chat. Took my butt downstairs, sat on the couch, turned it on just in time to see those damn TikToking Cavender twins wiping the floor with my Indiana Lady Hoosiers.
Oh, buddy. I think Miami just owns the university now.
I don't understand.
I think all the endowments, like everything goes to Miami. Like I think they have to move IU out of Bloomington to Coral Gables and just put it in just like an off-campus housing dump that they've been thinking about tearing down. Just make that the institution of Indiana University.
Well, it's funny because half of Coral Gables' population appears to be students at Indiana University. We always had a weird Miami contingent, so I'm very conflicted about this. But either way, I hate the U.
Yeah, hate that for you, buddy.
Wait, where's the TikTok? What happened? I even made a Cavender joke to try and remind you. Do you know who they are?
No, I don't know who they are.
Oh, you don't have TikTok.
Why do you say that like it's a thing people know?
It is a thing that people know.
What is a Cavender?
The Cavender twins are very, very famous. Robert, do you have any insight on this, or are you just going to, is this for me to take?
I think they signed the biggest NIL deal in women's college sports history.
That is correct. They are too. So they transferred to Miami this prior to this past season, and I can't remember where they started their college basketball career, but they're super famous on TikTok. They've got the biggest NIL deal, as Robert said, in women's sport history, and one of them only scored 2 points in the win last night, and either way, Indiana's going home.
There's been some pretty big upsets in the women's tournament. Did you see Ole Miss going to Stanford, knocking off 1-seeded Stanford? That's 2 1-seeds that have gone down in the women's tournament. So it's been pretty fun on that side of March Madness as well.
What do you got?
My oh no is also self-involved because over the weekend, myself and Jalil Anibaba were on the radio broadcast as Nashville Soccer Club was at New England Revolution, dropping the first loss of the season, a 1-0 result at Gillette Stadium. Now, I have never been a believer in the announcer jinx, ever. I've always thought it to be a ridiculous thing that whatever the broadcaster says in the booth has an impact on what happens down on the field or on the court. I am not a superstitious person whatsoever. That might change after this, and I'd like to apologize to all Nashville SC fans for what you're about to hear.
That is why he's got 52 career shutouts right there.
And that is 321 minutes so far this season where Nashville has not conceded a goal. The only team in MLS that can say that. Scoreless game, 52nd minute at Gillette Stadium. New England with it. They've had the majority of possession here early second half. DeJuan Jones picks out a pass centrally to Gustavo Bo, trying to get past Mayer, near post, and he scores. What a strike by Gustavo Bo on the left foot. Found the angle on Jack Mayer down the left side of the box, and then fired it into the near post, top corner. And Nashville concedes for the first time this season. New England leads 1-0 in the 53rd minute.
Is this what these segments are just going to turn into, you playing your own calls?
No, I don't want to do this, but not 30 seconds.
Yeah, he's really struggling with it, Bert.
Not 30 seconds after I said 321 minutes that Nashville has not conceded a goal, Gustavo Bo found the top corner, near post, and New England scores to eventually take the lead and go on to win 1-0. So my apologies to Nashville Soccer Club and all of its fans.
What you got, Bert?
As you already mentioned, I could go with myself for getting ridiculed. If we got the time, I'd like to share my favorite insults from last night. One, this guy
Get some context. What are you talking about?
Okay, so I'm on primetime. I'm producing for Buck. We do a segment called In Case You Missed It, where I bring some things to attention that might have fallen by the wayside during the week of sports. We had a big weekend, so I kind of update you guys. Mm-hmm. Well, not only did I mess up Josh Dobbs' name, I called him Josh Dodds. I said he signed with the Broncos, which is also wrong. I only got the color right. It's an orange team. But I digress. This has nothing to do with me being inaccurate with information. This has everything to do with my physical appearance. And as soon as I come up on the screen, every time these people have something to say. Like, here are some of my favorites. This guy looks like he just got done clipping his toenails. This guy looks like he crop dusts nursing homes.
Which, by the way, I said to him immediately, we were off the air when he read me that one. I said, I now have an embedded image of Bert in scrubs walking through the hallways of nursing homes and accidentally letting one rip as some poor woman shuffles by on her what do they call those things? Walker.
Yeah, there you go, with the
Like
tennis balls.
The tennis balls on the bottom.
Yeah. Or the one this one really cut me deep. Why does he have braces on 4 teeth? But that's not my own no.
That's pretty racist.
That was racist.
Boo.
We brought it back.
No.
That's like a year-long joke, man. We haven't done that in a while.
Hey, that's a really good run.
Anyway, my oh no goes to the former Patriot, former Panther quarterback who released on his social media yesterday that he would be throwing at Auburn's Pro Day, Cam Newton. And you don't have to have the audio because I watched this probably 500 times. It was awful. Tell me how these randoms keep getting jobs. And then he I don't know, he kind of steps
Cam
on his...
talks like he writes on Instagram with that weird language.
that
like
wingding font.
It cracks me up.
Come on, man. How does he download that keyboard to his phone and accurately type with that?
It's got to be exhausting.
But he answers his own questions. He's like, how do these randoms keep getting these jobs? I'm going to show you. And then, like, are you a random, Cam? Are you also going to be out here looking for these David Blau jobs? Like, are you okay with being someone's backup? Like, last time you played, you were awful.
Yeah.
He won one game against a hurt-ass Cardinals team. So if you can beat the Cardinals, then maybe you can fit somewhere on someone's roster. But there's no conceivable way that Cam Newton should be saying he is better than 32 other quarterbacks. I think I could name non-quarterbacks who would be better quarterbacks than he was. Who was that? The Bengals, Falcons, Patriots wide receiver that always threw the passes and never.
Mohamed Sanu.
Mohamed Sanu, better quarterback right now than Cam Newton.
Kadarius Toney, former high school quarterback, better than Cam Newton.
Julian Edelman, even retired, probably better than Cam Newton.
Tom Brady, retired, better than Cam Newton.
Oh, without a doubt.
Cam, there are obviously 32 quarterbacks who are better than you. So Cam Newton gets my oh no.
He's only 33. He's not, he's a former MVP of the league. Supreme confidence is something that I associate with all athletes, but like Cam in particular, I had to tell Robert about the letter to the editor that was written when Cam Newton was literally backflipping into the Titans end zone and dabbing on them during that one year when the dab was highly controversial. You remember how stupid that was? What was that woman's name that wrote that letter? Do you not know what I'm talking about? Lucas, you don't know? Google this right now.
What, that wrote a letter about Cam Newton dabbing?
About Cam Newton dabbing in the end zone being something that she did not want her impressionable either son or grandson to be a part of. But she's fine with, half-naked cheerleaders shaking it in the end zone. That's fine. It's Cam Newton dabbing on Avery Williamson because he's 6 feet taller than Avery, and Avery Williamson can't stop Cam Newton from getting into the end zone. It was one of the funniest stories of my lifetime.
We'll bring it full circle. Cam comes back to Tennessee.
No.
Cam's Dobbs just signed in
sign
Cleveland.
Sign with who?
The Cleveland Browns.
Are you sure?
Yeah. God, I hope so.
Are you sure with Dobbs?
I hope so.
Where's Josh Dodd?
Joshua Dodd just signed with the Detroit 49ers.
Yep, that's where. God, I hate both of you. Give me the Shadows. I need it.
I will send you to the Shadows, but I will send you with the name of the woman who wrote the letter to the editor, Rosemary Plorin.
Rosemary.
Go to break.
It is 11:02. Good morning from the Superbook.com Sports Desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. The Titans made their 6 free agent signings official on Monday, and this morning announced 3 additions to the coaching staff. And special teams assistant Tom Quinn, another special teams assistant in Anthony Levine, who is a former Tennessee State Tiger and NFL vet, as well as offensive line assistant Matt Jones, who spent the last 4 years coaching at his alma mater, UT Martin. The Tennessee Lady Vols are moving on to the Sweet 16, cruising past Toledo and Thompson Bowling Arena on Monday. Final score of 94-47. 5 different Lady Vols players scoring in double figures. They will face top-seeded Virginia Tech on Saturday for a spot in the Elite Eight. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once and your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Second down on a Tuesday. What is happening? Welcome into 104.5 The Zone. It is delightful to have you guys here. Robert, Lucas, myself. We got you for 2 more hours. Jump in at any point. Whether it's on the phones, whether it's on Zone TV, we're live streaming, Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. All the different places you can hang out and interact with us. Now, we've just done the segment, Oh no, what in sports made you say oh no this week? And for some reason, that has brought us back to November of 2015 when the Carolina Panthers came to Nashville, Tennessee to play the Tennessee Titans. I am shocked, Lucas, that you don't remember this story.
I remember this happening. I remember Cam Newton scoring and dabbing in Avery Williamson's face and Titans defenders getting mad. I remember all of that.
But you don't remember the letter to the editor that was written by a Tennessee Titans fan in Nashville to the Charlotte Observer as a letter to Cam Newton that the newspaper published. You don't remember that part?
Somehow I do not remember this.
Okay, should I read the letter? Because this was the first year that I got to Nashville, and I remember this being a whole controversy that completely absorbed sports talk radio in this city for about a week.
So this would have been what, 2016?
2015.
15.
November 2015. So this is Rosemary Plorin. I don't know if Rosemary's still out there. I don't know if she still goes to Titans games after this. But at the time, she had attended the Titans and Panthers game with her 4th grade daughter. On Monday, the Charlotte Observer writes, she sent us this note she wrote to Panthers quarterback Cam Newton. Ahem. Dear Mr. Newton, congratulations on your win in Nashville today. It was an ass kicking, by the way. Like they put it on the Titans.
And this is the Super Bowl Panthers, right?
I think that's
MVP
right.
MVP Cam Newton. Panthers started, I think, 15-0 that year.
I think that is correct. You might fact check me on this, but I believe this is MVP Cam Newton that only lost to Peyton Manning, the corpse of Peyton Manning, in the Super Bowl because Von Miller was chewing on his spine for the entire game.
Yes, they were 15-1 in the regular season and lost the Super Bowl this 2015 year.
I love that we're doing this on March 21st, 2023. Congratulations on your win in Nashville today. Our team played well, but yours played better. Kudos to the Panthers organization. Okay, Rosemary. That game happened to be my 9-year-old daughter's first live NFL experience. She was surprised to see so many Panthers fans sitting in our section of the stadium. I add parenthetically, that sounds about like Nissan Stadium in 2015. That doesn't happen much at 4th grade football games, and she was excited we were near the end zone so she could be close to the action, particularly in the second half. Because of where we sat, we had a close-up view of your conduct in the 4th quarter. The chest puffs, the pelvic thrusts, the arrogant struts, and the in-your-face taunting of both the Titans players and fans. We saw it all. I refuse to believe you don't realize you are a role model. You are paid millions of dollars every week to play hard and to be a leader. In the offseason, you're expected to make appearances, support charities, and inspire young kids to pursue your sport and all sports. With everything the NFL has gone through in recent years, I believe this was post-kneeling with everybody's Everybody being bent out of shape about kneeling with the Kaepernick and protesting. And
I feel like that outrage was really 2016, but either way.
No, you're right. That was the following year.
Yeah.
Because the Titans played the Seahawks, and neither team came out of the locker room for the anthem, and it was a mess.
Because I think Kaepernick had been kneeling around that point, but people
weren't paying attention
yeah,
yet.
People weren't getting angry about it.
It was like, oh, it's fine. He's kneeling. Nobody's paying attention.
And then in
That's not a big
2016,
deal.
people are like, he's doing what?
And he's able to stand?
Oh, my God. And because you are a role model, your behavior brought out like behavior in the stands. Some of the Panthers fans in our section began taunting the hometown fans. Many Titans fans booed you. A few offering instructive but not necessarily family-friendly suggestions as to how you might change your behavior. My daughter sensed the change immediately and started asking questions.
Very perceptive young child.
Won't he get in trouble for doing that? Is he trying to make people mad?
Mommy, won't he get in trouble for that?
Do you think he knows he looks like a spoiled brat?
Your kid didn't say that.
This is just not true.
Yeah. And then she asked me about the Pythagorean theorem.
I didn't have great answers for her. And honestly, in an effort to minimize your negative impact in what was otherwise a really fun day, I redirected her attention to the cheerleaders and the mascot. I could tell she was still thinking about it as we boarded a shuttle back to our car.
Look at the raccoon, honey. Look at the man dressed like a raccoon instead.
Did that raccoon just eat a cheerleader? Mom! HR! I could tell she was still thinking about it as we boarded a shuttle back to our car. I guess he doesn't have kids or a mom at home watching the game, she added. This is the smartest 9-year-old. I don't know anything about 9-year-olds. All right?
I'm telling you.
I can't tell you the last time I've been around a 9-year-old, but this is the smartest damn 9-year-old I've ever heard of. I don't know about your family life, Mr. Newton, but I think I'm safe in saying thousands of kids watch you each week. You have amazing talent and an incredible platform to be a role model for them. Unfortunately, what you modeled for them today was egotism, arrogance, and poor sportsmanship. Is that what your coaches and mentors modeled for you, Mr. Newton?
Mr. Newton.
That's how it ends.
Is this how Elvis felt? Like, stop all that gyration. Look at what you're doing to the young women.
It's the devil's music.
This was one of the funniest stories I've ever seen in my life. And I don't know if our girl Beverly's still out there, or excuse me,
Beverly,
Rosemary.
yeah,
Rosemary. Yeah, you're like 2 generations behind. Beverly's she'd be a little bit younger if she was a Beverly.
I love I could tell my daughter was still thinking about it as we got to the car. No, she wasn't.
She was wondering if we were getting ice cream. When the hell are we getting ice
She's got a
cream?
finger up her nose. What do you mean she's thinking about Cam Newton dabbing in the end zone in his moral, the things that guide his moralities? What are we talking about here?
And look what happened now. She's selling fake dabs on Broadway. She's like, can I get somebody a dab? Does anybody want a dab? Can I give you a dab, sir? Look what you've done to her, Cam.
Dabbing at strangers.
This is not that long ago. The idea of somebody writing a letter to the editor like this to a local newspaper just seems like something so 70s to me. I don't know why that sounds like the oldest thing in the world.
Wonder if Cam ever saw it.
Oh, no, this was like a national story because she didn't send it to the Tennessean. She's a Titans fan she sent it to the Charlotte Observer. I'm
going to take it to where you're from.
I'm going to put this in your newspaper, Mr. Newton.
I wonder what happened to that kid. You remember that Play 60 commercial with the kid that came just warming up my arm?
Yeah, that's Mac Jones.
And I could beat you, and I could take your starting job, and be the starting quarterback for the Panthers.
Be your mom's favorite player. Yeah. That was a great commercial.
It was one of the best commercials.
Yeah, that kid grew up to be Mac Jones and be the starter over Cam in New England.
Plot twist. I love that we have time. We had other things to talk about. We've got stuff on the Titans defense, and you'll hear from Arden Key and blah blah blah. But I felt it was a great opportunity to relitigate one of the dumbest stories I can remember in my time covering the local professional football team. Cam Newton getting chastised because he dabbed because Avery Williamson is twice or half his size and can't physically keep him out of the end zone.
Under the list of things you just can't make up, Karen in the YouTube chat says, I agree with her. She was spot on, and their fans were bad too.
No, it can't be a literal Karen. No.
That's not.
I refuse to believe that that's. Are we still in a place where we are so repressed as a society that dabbing, not even the drugs, like the bending into the arm thing, that's what's got you bent out of shape in the year of our Lord 2023? Still. It makes me so happy. 615-737-1045. I'm glad we did that. Let's talk about the Titans defense and how it got better next. So Titans free agents at the podium yesterday had a lot to say between the 5 of them. The 6th of this current free agent class, new players that are coming in. Sean Murphy-Bunting not made official until about 5:30 yesterday afternoon. He's very excited, though, based on his social media messaging, saying on Twitter that he's very excited to see all the Sean Murphy-Bunting jerseys in the stands. I feel like this is a fan base that's scared to buy jerseys. I feel that I've gotten many tweets in the past couple of weeks, we'll call it, since Lawan was released, Jones and Ben Jones, and who else did they cut that is significant? Who am I forgetting?
Those are bad examples, though. Those guys were here for years. Like, Lawan was here almost a decade. Ben Jones was here 7 years.
David Long is another one. They didn't cut him, but they let him walk, right? David Long, a fun player. David Long, a fan favorite, I felt like, and somebody whose jerseys were being purchased, and then all of a sudden, David Long, Miami Dolphins.
But it's like, if you've had a Lawan jersey for all these years, and now you're just angry that he's been cut because your jersey isn't on the team anymore, like, okay, that's just how this works.
No, but like, I had at least 4 tweets that I counted that said, I got a Ben Jones jersey for Christmas.
That's tough. That's tough, but you got to have better awareness. Whoever the gift giver is there, it's got to have better awareness.
At Christmas?
If you're going to spend that money on a jersey, you got to think, like, okay, like,
is he already on IR by then?
Is this going to be a long-term thing? You don't have to predict who's going to get cut, but you got to think, guy, in his 30s, at some point approaching the end of his career, maybe go younger, right? Maybe go with a draft pick. If you're going to go a lineman, maybe go with, I don't know. I guess that's not a good conversation to have.
Once Daly?
That would be a funny gift.
It's honestly one of my favorite things. Every once in a while during like a TV timeout, you get bored in the press box. And you're just looking at the different jerseys that are down in front of you and be like, oh, my God, is that a Titans Jadeveon Clowney jersey? Somebody's wearing that in the stadium? What are you doing out there?
Oh, the YouTube chat is saying Stonehouse, the only reliable jersey to buy. That's
a pretty safe one.
That's a safe one. You can get a Stonehouse jersey. That thing will be rock solid for about 10, 15 years, you would think.
So while you're doing your shopping, I don't know if many of you will want Arden Key or Azeez Al-Shaair or Daniel Brunskill or Andre Dillard jerseys.
Just don't buy jerseys for guys on one-year deals, maybe.
Yeah, but that's basically their entire free agent class, because I know Key and Dillard are on 3-year deals, but they're not really 3-year deals if you look at them. So don't buy any of the free agent jerseys at this point. I'm sure the marketing people are pissed at us for saying that out loud. But in listening to them talk yesterday and kind of going through the discussion around, all right, what's the plan? Like, what's the play? What are you telling me with 6 players, 4 of whom are on basically 1-year deals, 2 of whom are on longer-term deals that are basically 1-year deals, and not much cash beyond 2023 that you're going to be tied up in? Well, what you're telling me is that you got to win with value. If you're going to win with these players, then it's going to have to be at value, because that's the financial situation that you find yourselves in. Okay, I can accept that. They are players who would probably benefit, almost all of them, from expanded opportunities, and they'll get that here in Tennessee. Arden Key said that even with the Jags, he wasn't a starting player. He was mostly relegated to third down. He's looking forward to the opportunity to potentially becoming a starting player, and I believe what is going to be his 4th year in the NFL. Azeez Al-Shaair, who's been stuck behind Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner, 2 absolute studs, I believe 2 Pro Bowlers. Did Dre Greenlaw make an All-Pro team this year? Either way, he's gotten opportunities because Dre Greenlaw, more than Warner, has missed a lot of time due to injury, and he's been out there in their defense. When they're in their base defense in San Francisco, Al-Shaair was the 3rd linebacker on the field. Here he's going to be the starter. And so with these guys and how they fit in the defense, the opportunity here is something that they seem the most excited about. Now, Arden Key was asked about the fact-finding or the research that he did on the Titans prior to joining. Apparently, he called a bunch of players on the team, including 2 that he knows from LSU, Christian Fulton and Racey McMath. This was Arden Key when asked about players on the roster who may have reached out to him. You don't have it? Oh, is it frozen? It's frozen. Okay, we'll get to it in a little bit. Long story short, though, what you have with the Titans' defensive additions are guys who I think still give you the best defense in the division. We opened the show with the move that the Texans have made. They traded Brandon Cooks away. They signed a lot of interesting skill position players, even if their wide receiver core is down bad. They reset the left tackle market again with Laramie Tunsil, who will have the opportunity to do so again before he's 31, which is a fascinating business situation that I want to talk with former agent Joel Corey about on Thursday of this week is when we're expected to have Joel. But with the defensive additions, I still think that this is the best defense in the AFC South pre-NFL draft. Here is Key talking about the research that he was doing prior to signing.
I reached out to them. So I reached out to Christian, Kevin Byard, Jeffrey Simmons, Patrick Callaway, and I think that was it. They was just telling me things. I asked questions about Mike. Mike, how is he as a head coach? And the energy and the vibe that's going on in the town, in the locker room that's going on right now. Do the team believe that they can win? Do the team believe that they can run the South? And a lot of the answers was hell yeah.
So if Arden Key went where the money is. He went with the security, and he went with an opportunity to stick it to the team who didn't offer him a contract in Jacksonville twice a year, something that he's very excited about. In fact, he was asked, Arden Key specifically, about the amount of times that he's bounced around in the NFL already, because he was drafted by the Raiders, played a year in San Francisco, and then ended up on the Jags last year and wasn't offered the opportunity to get a new contract with a team that's very exciting in the AFC South. Instead, he finds himself in Tennessee. This was Arden Key on why that is the case.
So with me in San Fran, they told me straight up, we can't offer you anything. If we offer you something, it'll be disrespectful to you. So go test the market out and see. With Jacksonville, it was a shock to me. I ain't gonna lie. After the year, I thought I was gonna be a Jacksonville Jaguar. But I felt disrespected because I came over there, built up the culture, brought a whole lot of energy, changed the city, changed the town, and I felt like I was in my rightful mind. I was gonna be a Jacksonville Jaguar, but that didn't happen. I still love the players, love the teammates, love the city, love the fans, but yeah, we got to see them twice.
It reminds you of how Danico Autry was speaking, right, when he signed with the Titans. Obviously, different player.
Not so many words.
More productive career, maybe not as many words, and was further along in his career. But the rhetoric was there. Felt disrespected. Couldn't wait to see the Colts again.
That's been very, very impactful in the Titans-Colts matchups.
Worked out for the Titans.
It has considerably. They have swept Indianapolis. Wait, did they sweep Indy in 2021? That can't be right. So they swept Indy in back-to-back years.
Yep.
They've swept the Indianapolis Colts every year that Danico Autry's been on the roster? That's a fact?
Yeah, I suppose Danico has never lost because he was drafted by the Colts.
No,
right?
he was undrafted
Raiders.
by the Raiders.
The Raiders. That's
undrafted
right.
by the Raiders.
So I don't know how many times he would have played the Colts as a Raider, but as a Titan.
I don't think Danico Autry has lost to the Colts.
No, he hasn't. You beat him at home in week 3 of 21, and then you go to Indy. Because they played back-to-back years, they've played Indy twice before Halloween.
Yeah.
And so they go to Indy, and Carson Wentz is throwing interceptions like it's his job, and Titans get out of Indy with the sweep.
Yeah, and then Matt Ryan not covering himself in glory. I believe they got Matt Ryan both times around with the Colts this year prior to the Sam Ehlinger experience.
Yeah, the Titans did not get got by neither Carson Wentz nor Matt Ryan.
Well, nobody. I just love that as a stat. Danico Autry's never lost to the Colts as a member of the Tennessee Titans. Now, who's to say that will be the same result with the Jags? But it does, if you're going to sign players that other teams don't want, there is some intrinsic value to doing it within the division. So you can say, hey, bud, that team that didn't want you, go get them. Especially if you're somebody whose job it is to get after the quarterback for a living. That I feel like can go a long way. Now, the fit for Arden Key is what makes him so interesting because you have known commodities. Let's take a look at the Titans defense right now. So starting players, let's just if we were looking at a base defense, you've got not Bud Dupree. You've got Harold Landry, Danico Autry, Tier Tart, Jeff Simmons, Arden Key. That's your starting front five. Behind them, Azeez Al-Shaair and Monty Rice. Right now, we'll see how things play themselves out in the coming months. Corners, you've got that situation figured out, it would seem, because if you're in your base, it's probably Christian Fulton and Roger McCreary on the outside, Kevin Byard and Amani Hooker behind them. If you're in the nickel, it's going to be some combination of those two and either Elijah Molden or Sean Murphy Bunting. I don't know if Murphy Bunting, I haven't watched a ton of him, to be honest with you, just yet. I don't know if he's primarily an outside corner or if he can play inside as well. So we'll see what kind of things shift around. And by the way, I mean, depending on how they want to do it, if it's nickel, if it's dime, they have played McCreary both on the outside and on the inside. So theoretically, they could shift those roles around too, depending on what kind of defensive alignments they come out in. Now, I think when you talk about the fit of Arden Key, why does it make so much sense for the Titans to take it's not a risk necessarily. It's a very low risk, high upside play with a 3-year deal on a player who's bounced around the way that Arden Key has. Here's Greg Cosell explaining on last week's episode of The Install, the podcast that Greg and I do every Wednesday, why Arden Key makes so much sense in Tennessee.
To when he was with the Niners a few years ago. We saw the same thing in Jacksonville this year. He's multi-positional. You can line him up inside. You can line him up outside. He's got length. He's got quickness. He's a good pass rusher. I think he's one of those guys that, you don't think about because he's not going to get 15 or 18 sacks, but he's a really valuable piece of a defensive front with his position versatility. And I think that length is really important. You probably remember being in SEC country coming out of LSU. When he got to LSU, he was supposed to be, the next guy. I mean, LSU has a lot of guys who are the next guy. Sure. But if I remember correctly, he had a really good first year at LSU, and it didn't quite work out where he was an oh my God kind of player. And if I recall, the Raiders drafted him, I believe. Yep. And then he ended up with the Niners, where he started to come together. Then he left there, went to Jacksonville for a year and had a really good year in the same way that he had the good year or two with the Niners, playing inside and outside. And I think that's a really positive signing. And again, I don't want people to think, and I hope people don't think that because we do this, that I'm a homer, but I'm just going by tape study. I think Arden Key is a really solid multi-positional player that will help this defensive front.
Multi-positional is the word that kind of caught my attention when Greg was going through the analysis there. Again, that's last week's episode of The Install. We talked about all the free agent signings except Murphy Bunting because that one had not come down at the time. It's available wherever you get your podcasts.
But it sounds like it's been an upward trajectory for Key.
Yeah, so he came into the league in 2018. And last year was the biggest sample size that we've had of him. He started to figure it out in San Francisco, as Greg kind of alluded there. But last year, he played in all 17 games. He only had 3 starts, though. 27 tackles, 4.5 sacks, 38 pressures, 5 tackles for loss, and a fumble recovery. 38 pressures, ranked second for the Jags. And over the last 5 weeks of the season, this is courtesy of Titans PR, he posted 25 pressures, which ranked second in the league behind Nick Bosa over that time frame. So this is the kind of high reward, low risk play that the Titans are trying to make. It's a similar one with Andre Dillard, where you take a flyer on a left tackle that had first round pedigree, that hasn't had the opportunity, that got outplayed. You desperately need one, so why not let him try and have the opportunity to earn a job here in Tennessee after Philadelphia no longer had any use for his services beyond depth and couldn't pay him to keep him around, because they sure as hell didn't want to let him go at the trade deadline. It's worth noting. Now, Key, if you look at his game logs from last year, he's somebody who I think really acquitted themselves in a variety of different ways. Now, I'm looking at Pro Football Focus for the specific numbers on Arden Key and kind of how those pressures came into play situationally. His ability to get after the quarterback was really evident down the stretch for them in Jacksonville. It's not just about the sacks, because the sacks, 4.5 is fine. Sacks is something we talk about as the measure of an overall pass rush. I'm sure you've heard me say that phrase before. Measure of an overall pass rush as opposed to the individual player. So the quarterback hits, the hurries, those are the things that I think I typically gravitate more towards, just because it shows me how much more an individual is able to kind of make a play on the quarterback from those positions rather than what the final statistical box score count ends up looking like. Arden Key is a player who I think can do that well, especially when they want to go light, when they are able to win on early downs, suffocate the run the way that they're able to do, try and keep teams behind the chains on first and second, then you kind of go nuts on third down and let your defense take over, let your pass rush take over, and have the ability to drop 7 into coverage at that point is one of the biggest advantages that any defense can have. Arden Key, I think, is going to give them that kind of NASCAR package piece and have the opportunity to start for the first time really in his career since coming into the league in 2018. He's got the length, he's got the speed, he's got the technique to be able to make him an opponent that I think is going to give at least above average tackles a problem more often than not. And then, the highlight that I saw going around as soon as he was signed, not to bring up the corpse of Dennis Daly again, but it's just Arden Key literally grabbing Dennis Daly by the chest and walking over the top of him en route to I don't think it was a sack of Ryan Tannehill, but it was at least a quarterback hurry.
He's had consistency too. You see these 4.5 sack numbers throughout the course of a season, 6.5 sacks in San Francisco. A lot of times they're clumped up, right? Beat 2.5 in one game. One thing particularly against one particular tackle was working. But
he's there. Like he's around the ball. He's around the quarterback.
He's in the backfield.
Yeah.
In that 1 year in San Francisco, he had at least half a sack in 7 games. 8 games, excuse me.
And that I think is more important. So when you talk about the value of a pass rusher, look at how often look at the game log if you want, look at the sack numbers if you want, but kind of try and discern what the situations those sacks came in, because he's been specifically a third down player for the vast majority of his career. Again, full-time starting opportunity is what he has here, but that's not been who Arden Key. That's not the role that Arden Key has been able to operate out of since coming into the league. This is really going to be his first chance to do so. So I think seeing that gives you the promise, whether he's going to be able to do that on a consistent down-in, down-out basis, because they like their outside linebackers to play a lot of snaps here. When Harold Landry went down, it wasn't like they were bringing Weaver off the field a ton. Weaver was out there. He was asked to play. You're going to see probably 80 to 85% of the snaps if you're a starting edge player / outside linebacker in this defense. So that's going to be a new challenge for him to have to meet, but he seems to be excited about doing it.
And then how many, and sacks, I know we keep going back to it's not an end-all be-all stat, but it's still production. And guys get paid off of sacks.
Sure.
So how many sacks did Bud Dupree have in 2 years with the Titans?
Give me just
7.
a moment, and I'll find 7.
7, yeah.
Why are you asking me hypotheticals?
I just didn't wonder if you had it at the top of your head.
Okay, very good.
Bud Dupree, 7 sacks on that contract in 2 years with the Titans. Arden Key obviously has had over 10 in the last 2 years with San Francisco and Jacksonville. So if this trajectory continues, you're talking about potentially getting the same or much better production at that position for Key at a far lower cost.
Like a third, not even a third, a quarter of the cost at this point based on how Bud Dupree's contract was ultimately going to play itself out.
And a lot of that depends on how Harold Landry comes back off the ACL, which was when Bud Dupree was at his best, with Landry opposite of him.
615-737-1045 is how you chime in about the Titans' defensive signings. We'll touch on Azeez Al-Shaair, let you hear some of what he had to say, and also talk a little bit about the World Baseball Classic coming up next. Azeez Al-Shaair, the new Titans linebacker, was one of the players that spoke at the podium yesterday. Welcome back to the show. Going to hear from him in just a second because I thought what he said about what's going to make this transition a little easier for him coming over from San Francisco to Tennessee. I thought that was a good piece of audio that I want you guys to hear, and you will in just a moment. I do have to remind you, though, that we are doing the steeplechase event again this coming May the 14th, to be exact, and we would love to have you guys out there again with us. It was so much fun last year at Steeplechase. It was my first time, and it's going to be the 82nd running of the Iroquois Steeplechase presented by Bank of America. So Saturday, May the 13th at Percy Warner Park. You can make tailgating a breeze by purchasing tickets to join us inside the all-inclusive Champions Corner, thanks to Uncle Bud's and O'Charlie's. For more info or to purchase tickets, visit 1045thezone.com. It's a great event. We had a fantastic time last year. They had once you have your ticket, the food, the booze, the tailgating area is free for you to run around, to come in, to come out, to go hang out at the grandstands if you want to. But the setup that we have is right there on one of the turns, and they even have like an air-conditioned like trailer out there for you if it gets a little too toasty sometimes. I know it can out there at Percy Warner Park in May.
And you know what that means for this show?
What's that?
The return of horse or rock band.
Are we doing that again this year, Robert?
You bet we're doing it again.
Are you kidding me? That's kind of like our anniversary. Like, that was like the first thing I did on air with you guys.
Our anniversary?
Our.
Oh, well, he said yesterday it's a one-man show. So it's just his university.
My anniversary, not university.
Yeah, we're not involved in this.
I would never go to that school. I would never go to that school.
School of Buck.
That's the first thing I did on air with you guys. You had no way to give it away, and I was like, I got a game. And you're like,
Explain the horse or rock band deal.
Well, first, it's horse or rock band.
No. No, wait, we're ready. We're going to all do it. 1, 2, 3.
Horse or rock band. There you go.
Yeah, all right.
And the music's back. Horse or rock band, Nashville's favorite game.
Yeah,
we'll
do it. It's just a tease.
Oh, you're right. We're not really doing it.
We're not actually doing it.
All you have to do is discern whether the name that I'm giving you is a horse or a rock band.
Do you have an example? Should we just do one for fun in the middle of the show?
Seabiscuit.
Oh, well, that's...
I pick a good one.
A good one. I don't know terrible band names. Owl City is Owl City. Terrible band.
That's a band.
Or a horse.
It's where the Vols are about to go on Thursday night. Owl City. That's a rock band.
Rock. I don't know if it's rock band.
Okay, I got a real one.
It's just a guy.
I got a real one here.
Did I get it?
Yes, correct.
Where's the sound?
You never heard of Owl City?
No, I don't know what else.
Fireflies.
You would not believe your eyes.
Oh, that's
1 million fireflies.
Okay, we've got it.
You didn't. I'll have another. Is I'll have another a horse or a rock band?
That's a horse.
You are correct.
Yes. We're back.
Street Sense. Is Street Sense a band?
I said we were doing one of these.
Band.
Why did you not say horse before?
It's a horse. All right, we'll do it.
What are we doing? Just play the damn Al-Shaair sound.
It just makes the transition for me a lot smoother. Obviously, you go into a place where you don't know many people, and even though me, like I said, I know Ram, but at the same time, you got to gel with the players, and that's going to take time, and that's not something you can fake or rush. But knowing Arden already, we played in 2021 together in San Francisco, and just the type of guy he is. Y'all ain't meet him yet, I don't think, but when you do, you'll know what I'm saying. He'll speak for himself. As far as Daniel Brunskill, true pro, he was undrafted as well. So when I came in, he was already, in the league. But being an undrafted guy, he did everything the right way. You know what I'm saying? He was somebody I modeled myself after, not on the field, but just as a pro in general, how he carried himself, was about his business, showed up to work. Doesn't say much, but he's a good dude, great energy, but just gets his job done. So those are the type of things that I could say about those two guys for sure.
So that is new Titans linebacker Azeez Al-Shaair talking about the familiarity and the continuity of having already worked with Rand Carthon, having played on defense with Arden Key, and having been teammates with Daniel Brunskill, who the Titans have all added to this roster under Rand Carthon, the former San Francisco 49ers executive. How all these things come together, it's going to be fascinating to see. And whether or not they're done yet, I would not rule them out from making a signing here or there, but I would say the bulk of their free agency work is now completed. Now it's about filling out the roster during the draft, after the draft, undrafted rookie free agency, all these different things before we can start to get a better picture of what this thing will look like before training camp in the summer. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in on the conversation if you would like. Now, we had a commenter on the Zone TV chat, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, bring up the idea that if Nick Saban, or I'm sorry, it was on Twitter, tweeted us specifically at Buck Rising, at Lucas Panzica, at Robbie_Walsh. Is that right?
Yep.
All right, very good. He tweeted us, if Nick Saban, if somebody doesn't mention Saban's press conference yesterday on the show today, I will be sorely disappointed. That was tweeted at us by Rob Stafford 77 about an hour ago.
Don't you worry, Rob Stafford 77.
That's coming next.
It is 11:59. Good morning from the Superbook.com Sports Desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. The Titans made their 6 free agent signings official on Monday, including offensive lineman Andre Dillard, who spoke with Titans media and said he has his sights set on one starting role in particular.
Left tackle is definitely what I have my eyes set on. That's my goal. It's I'm going to compete and give everything I have to get that spot. But obviously, I'm willing to do whatever is best for the team at the end of the day. But left tackle is definitely what I have my sights set on.
This morning, the team announced 3 additions to the coaching staff and special teams assistants Tom Quinn, a former Giants assistant, and Anthony Levine, a former Tennessee State Tiger and NFL veteran, as well as offensive line assistant Matt Jones, who spent the last 4 years coaching at his alma mater, Tennessee Martin. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Final hour is here. Welcome in, welcome back. Love to have you, love to chat with you. Happy that you guys have chosen to spend a little bit of your afternoon with the 3 of us knuckleheads, Robert, Lucas, and myself. We've got you until 1 o'clock before we turn things over to Blaine and Mickey. Get in here if you want to. 615-737-1045 is how you get it done. We haven't taken a look. Well, we talked a little bit of college football yesterday. Spring practice getting underway for the University of Tennessee, their first day of on-field work, and some comments from Josh Heupel prior to them doing so. But been a while since we've checked in on Lil Nick Saban, and the Alabama Crimson Tide. So it appears, or at least the optics, are that there is some Alabama on Alabama crime out there. Now, whether you want to construe that as such, whether you want to twist it into something that it may or may not be, that's entirely your prerogative. As I know, I believe our colleague Will Bowling did a little bit of that today, yeah? But Tony Mitchell, one of the freshman football players on the Alabama football team, he got arrested for possession of marijuana with intent to distribute last week. Apparently, he was driving 141 miles per hour as he attempted to flee from police. So Saban suspended him from the team indefinitely, then got out there with a statement that, depending on how you construe this, some people are taking as a shot at a fellow coach on the Alabama athletic department staff. Here's the statement. Quote, everybody's got an opportunity to make... Oh, wait, do we have the audio? Yeah, let's play the audio. I'd rather hear Nick Saban say it than me.
Tony Mitchell has been suspended from the team and all team activities until we gather more information about the situation and what his legal circumstance is. And, guys, everybody's got an opportunity to make choices and decisions. There's no such thing in being at the wrong place at the wrong time. You got to be responsible for who you're with, who you're around, and what you do, who you associate yourself with, and the situations that you put yourself in. So it is what it is, but there is, cause and effect when you make, choices and decisions that put you in bad situations.
Any of that sound familiar? Anybody tell me where one of those lines may or may not have been linked? There's no such thing as being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Okay, Nick. That same line, or a line similar to it, was uttered by the Alabama basketball coach, if you will remember, talking about Brandon Miller. And this was back on February 21st when there was testimony in Tuscaloosa about the tragic shooting that took place and Brandon Miller's name being invoked, not in the shooting itself, but in the process of providing the gun that ultimately took a life that day. Speaking with media following Alabama's morning practice back on the 22nd, Nate Oates, the Alabama basketball coach, says, we knew about that. Can't control everything everybody does outside of practice. Nobody knew that was going to happen, talking about the shooting. College kids are out. Brandon hasn't been in any type of trouble, nor is he in any type of trouble in this case. Wrong spot at the wrong time. Do we really think that Nick Saban is taking a shot at Nate Oates?
No, not even a little bit.
Why try and turn it into this? I was having a conversation with somebody the other day about external criticisms on the profession that you do. Okay? Like when you're in a front-facing role or position, whatever your line of work may be, whether you're a professional athlete, college football coach, college basketball coach, media member, whatever the case may be, when you are somebody who is exposed to external criticisms by people who don't necessarily know all the inner workings, all the ins and outs of what it is that you do for a living, but you still let those criticisms get to you. That's the kind of thing that I think annoys a lot of football coaches, a lot of players, a lot of coaches. When they're being asked questions about things that media members may know, a fraction, a percentage of what it is that the player or the coach actually knows about what it is that they're out there to do. These kind of things where we turn Nick Saban's comments, a throwaway line, into a shot at Nate Oates, and now the New York Post is writing articles on it.
What's the New York Post saying? Is there a headline? Nick Saban takes a dig at Alabama basketball
Nick
coach.
Saban appears to shade Nate Oates after kicking Alabama football player off the team. You want me to read all the headlines?
No.
Here, I'm going to go through. No. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. Here we go. Fox News. Alabama's Nick Saban appears to take subtle swipe at basketball coach. New York Post. Nick Saban appears to shade Nate Oates after kicking Alabama football player off the team. Nick Saban sends message in Tony Mitchell suspension. That's CBS. USA Today. Nick Saban shows the moral clarity that Nate Oates and Alabama will not. I want to see who wrote that USA Today article. I think I have it getting.
That could be different.
That's Nancy Harmon.
No, that could be different. That could be praising how Nick Saban handles this situation versus how Nate Oates handled the Brandon Miller situation. They're very different situations. One player,
but they're using the line to
they're connecting the dots. Okay.
To work the premise off of. That's what I'm saying.
It's an easy dot to connect, and I think it's low-hanging fruit.
Nick Saban gives a stinging rebuke to spinelessness shown by Nate Oates in Alabama.
Who had that one?
Nancy Armour.
Okay.
USA Today.
Enough with the headlines. They're making my brain hurt. Puka says on YouTube.
Thoughts?
Puka says Saban usually is deliberate in his choice of words. He absolutely is. Saban also has tunnel vision, a one-track mind. And why? Why would Nick Saban, who knows that the success of Alabama basketball in the midst of a Sweet 16 potential national championship run is the success of the university, is the success of the football program, intentionally take a shot at the head coach of Alabama basketball during their most important time of year to try and make that story about him and try to derail what's happening to Alabama on the basketball court? That's insanity. That would be an idiotic thing to do, and Nick Saban is not an idiot.
Didn't Cal just do something like that to Mark Stoops?
Oh, Cal, yes, Cal. No, he said something, he was fighting for his program with getting a new facility and all the things that he wants. Say, hey, this is, make no mistake, this is a basketball school. And then it started a little war of words between the football and basketball program.
Now, that was a much lesser offense than the one that is being alleged of Nick Saban.
Yeah, I don't see this at all as Nick Saban taking a shot at Nate Oates. I wouldn't be surprised. Truly, like Nick Saban, I'm sure knows everything that happened with the Brandon Miller situation, is aware of the Brandon Miller situation. Yeah. But I would not be surprised if Nick Saban never even saw that Nate Oates said that in a press conference. He's not watching Nate Oates' press conferences. He's worried about spring practice.
Rat poison, baby. We're giving him what he wants. The rat poison. This is how it goes. It's something that I think. It's a mistake that I think that gets made. Now, this is a particularly unique situation because a version of the same line is being uttered by two coaches who coach at the same university, right? And one of them happens to be the most famous and most winningest college football coach of all time, or most best college football coach of all. Nick Saban's not the winningest college football coach of all time, is he?
I don't think he has the most wins.
Okay, let me not misspeak there, but you understand what I'm saying. The greatest of the college football coaches, Nick Saban. When he says there's no such thing as the wrong place at the wrong time, I believe that is something that Nick Saban, to his core, believes. I think that Nick Saban is being intentional. Puka brings up Saban is usually deliberate and intentional in his choice of words. I believe that was a deliberate choice of words. I believe he's trying to emphasize to, the player that he suspended and anybody else, player, coach, or otherwise, who would be under Nick Saban's advisory umbrella, there's no such thing as the wrong place at the wrong time. I think that's something he believes at his core. I also think that it can be completely independent of Nate Oates as a throwaway line, callous though it may have been, saying, wrong spot, wrong time. I think those things can be true and completely independent of one another. And so when you see headlines like this and it appears to be, trying to make Nick Saban into something more combative than he's actually being, you're asking people to go watch press conferences to see specifically how the terms were uttered. Fortunately, we had the audio to play here for you so you can hear Nick Saban in his own words rather than me read it off the paper with different inflection or different tone that might construe different things. It's just kind of the media environment that we all exist in, and it's unfortunate because it's nonsense, but also, Nate Oates is going to be asked about this. This is going to be a talking point for the Sweet 16 coverage. Hell, I bet it makes an appearance on the Sweet 16 game that Alabama, the broadcast. I bet it makes an appearance there. Somewhere in there, I bet Nick Saban's comments at some point are brought up during the middle of the Alabama basketball broadcast this week. How much you want to bet?
No, I agree with you. I get what Puka's saying. He's deliberate in his comments, deliberate in his choice of words. But why, like you said, why does that have to mean he's taking a dig at Nate Oates? What does Nick Saban have to gain by taking a shot at the Alabama? He has more to lose than to gain in that situation. It makes no sense. There's no logic to it whatsoever.
So if you're going to believe that Nick Saban is deliberate, if you're going to believe that Nick Saban is, what's omnipresent, basically, and that you believe he's intentional in what he says and what he does, then what do you believe his intentions are by putting that out there? If you believe his intentions are to attack another coach on his athletic department staff, not on his staff, but you understand on the Alabama athletic department staff, I think you're foolish. And I think that anybody who's trying to construe those things, and this, I didn't hear Will's comments myself. You told me that he was kind of heading in that direction this morning.
I didn't hear it. I saw Will tweeted about it today.
Oh, tweeted about it.
Nick Saban doesn't say anything on accident, which is true.
I don't know if he was talking about. Yeah, so he didn't say anything on accident, but also that thing that he didn't say on accident has nothing to do with Nate Oates. Don't try and make it about that.
The situations are also very different. One player is in legal trouble. One is not at all.
A situation that is worth monitoring, given some signings that have been made around the NFL in the last couple of days, what position the Titans should be thinking about that isn't necessarily on top of the fan base's priority list. We're going to talk about that and what transaction specifically can impact that, has already impacted that in just a second. First, I'm going to remind you, though, that Kayla Anderson is participating in the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society's Visionaries of the Year campaign to help fight against blood cancer. It's a really cool thing that Kayla is doing. So you can donate to her cause. All donations greatly appreciated and tax deductible. To donate, you can visit 1045thezone.com/Team Kayla, or when we go to commercial break, when any of the shows go to commercial break on Zone TV, for those of you watching, there's a little QR code in the top of your YouTube or Twitch or Facebook Live browser, whatever you see. If you want to take your phone, use the QR code there. You can donate right from your phone. Make it real easy to support the great cause that Kayla has lent herself to. Titans talk when we come back about the backup quarterback next. Welcome back to the show. So, one position on the Titans roster that's been impacted, the depth already been impacted, and answers need to be found. Josh Dobbs signed a contract with the Cleveland Browns reportedly yesterday, 1 year, $2 million. Now, we don't know that Tennessee offered him the opportunity to come back. We don't know that the Titans did offer. They may have offered him an opportunity to come back. They may not have. He may have decided that this is a place that makes sense. He may have wanted to go back to Cleveland because Cleveland is a place where he spent a considerable amount of time in his career. I haven't talked to Josh since the contract was done yesterday, so I don't have a ton of clarity there. But there is no question that the Titans are now in a unique situation where prior to last season, what was the discussion around quarterback? Well, I mean, the entire offseason, it felt the discussion was around the quarterback until they traded A.J. Brown last April. But for the most part, the thing that you guys, it felt like anyway, that you wanted the answer to the most was, what is the quarterback situation? Can the Titans get Aaron Rodgers? Are they going to be stuck with Ryan Tannehill? Are we going to basically just recycle the same thing that we saw take place back in 2021? And the answer was yes, to a degree, except things got precipitously worse. The injury luck, the lack of injury luck continued to where the roster was again ravaged. They had the ability to not, or they did no longer have the ability to bring back players from injured reserve an unlimited amount of time, so capping it obviously helped or hurt their chances to be able to kind of stretch things out the way that they did better in 2021 en route to the number one overall seed. And, obviously throughout the course of that, there are a variety of different reasons why it happened, but they lost 7 straight games in doing so. So the quarterback situation last year was, all right, Ryan Tannehill, and there's Malik Willis in the 3rd round. You trade up to go get him, and he's in a perfect position, right? We talked glowingly about it all offseason long. Malik Willis doesn't have to play right away. Malik Willis is in a perfect situation. Malik Willis can sit and grow and develop and do all of these things, and if he's ready by 2023, gravy. If he's not, well, then Tannehill's still under contract. Maybe we try again in 2024. And what happened is Ryan Tannehill gets the high ankle sprain against the Colts. He misses a couple of weeks. Malik Willis fills in admirably. One game they win against the Texans, and he throws one forward pass in the entire second half of a football game. They go to Kansas City the next week in primetime, Sunday Night Football, and they lose, but they lose in overtime, and the discussion becomes, all right, well, he's good enough to keep them in a game. When in reality, the defense is the reason why you were in that game, and Malik Willis was not good enough to win you that game when it mattered most. When you needed critical conversions, when you needed to lean on your passing game, things fell apart.
Not all of that was on Malik Willis.
No. Some of that is on Chris Conley, who had one of the worst drops I have seen in a Titans uniform in I think we're coming up on, so that would have been 6 seasons.
In fact, there's a great argument that if Conley makes that catch, the Titans win the game.
Yes, but he didn't.
He didn't.
And they lose the game.
Right.
NWI also has a contested catch opportunity that he's not able to come down with. Need a playmaker in one spot or the other, you don't get either, right? And the team falls short. So even if Chris Conley doesn't make that catch, maybe NWI can, NWI doesn't, Titans lose in overtime to the Chiefs. So then Malik's next opportunity to go out and win a football game doesn't come until later. The Titans lose Tannehill again against the Los Angeles Chargers, and they've got to figure out the quarterback situation in short order. They're unable to do so, and Malik can, at that point, barely function within the passing game, and they lose to the Texans that week, 19-14 at home. Malik is 14 of 23 for 99 yards and 2 interceptions in the loss. He gets outplayed not just by Davis Mills, but by the other quarterback whose name escapes me. What's his name, Lucas, that they were splitting reps with?
Oh, Luke Driscoll.
Jeff Driscoll.
Jeff Driscoll, not Luke Driscoll.
Infinitely forgettable. And yet, The dual quarterbacks beat the Titans and look better than Malik Willis. So now Josh Dobbs is no longer an option for you, at least not immediately anyway. And there is no disputing that the Titans need a better backup quarterback situation. Looking at what he so let's put it this way. Josh Dobbs, if he signed with the Titans, is his opportunity to play better than signing with the Browns? I don't think so. Not necessarily. Josh Dobbs immediately becomes the second quarterback behind Deshaun Watson in Cleveland. Yes? Soon as he signs that deal.
I mean, that's a backup quarterback contract, right?
Well, no. I mean, that's a very, very low contract. I think that you could. I mean, I think. I said the name of Dallas's backup earlier, and I've forgotten it.
Cooper Rush. Cooper Rush won games for Dallas. Cooper Rush has more value.
But you're saying a backup quarterback contract,
average
1 year, $2 million.
What's the average salary for a backup quarterback?
I bet it's close to $10 million. On average. I bet if you looked at like CJ Beathard's contract or Cooper Rush, I don't know what Anthony Brown, who's the one that went to the Pro Bowl? Anthony Brown's the third string Ravens quarterback. Who's the backup?
Tyler Huntley. Yeah.
Tyler Huntley. I don't know what Tyler Huntley may still be on a rookie deal, but I bet a backup quarterback contract is closer to somewhere between $7 and $10 million.
Oh, I would you think Case Keenum was making between $7 and $10 million in Buffalo?
Was Case Keenum the backup to Josh Allen, the immediate backup?
Yeah.
I bet it's closer than you think it is. Are you looking this up, or do you want me to?
Bert's on it.
Okay, very
Bert's
good.
on the case.
That gives me great confidence.
Case Keenum just signed a 2-year, $6 million contract with the Texans.
All right.
And last year was making $5.5 million with the Buffalo Bills.
But Case Keenum, okay, so making $5.5 million.
Case Keenum, who's also won a good bit of games in this league.
Case Keenum has, and that's Case Keenum's like fourth or fifth stop in his NFL career. I bet he was making more money at some point with Minnesota as technically a backup quarterback at the time.
Okay, what do you think the highest paid backup quarterback in the NFL was making last season?
The highest paid, can you give me a team?
I'll give you
or even a name.
Darnold. What do you think Sam Darnold was making last year? Who ended up being a backup, but started some games.
I bet Darnold made $8 million last year.
Over seven.
Yeah. And that was the highest paid backup quarterback.
Sam Darnold, Mitch Trubisky, and Jimmy Garoppolo each made 7 or more. And those were the 3 highest paid. And Mitch Trubisky started the season as a starter. Jimmy Garoppolo obviously started games.
Okay, so I'm right.
And then from there it goes down. You were saying $7 to $10 million for backup quarterbacks
$7 and $10 million.
League. Barely 7, and those are for guys that started games.
You're right. I said average.
Like Case Keenum made over 5. So yeah, a 1-year, $2 million deal for a guy like Josh Dobbs that can be a serviceable backup, but has never actually won a game starting in this league. Sounds about right for a backup quarterback.
Do you think he's got a better chance to play in Cleveland or Tennessee?
Cleveland, because
he's guaranteed to be the number 2.
Yeah, there's no other quarterbacks there other than Deshaun Watson.
No mystery about who's, is there a young promising player on the roster somewhere?
Until they add that, yeah.
Yeah. So it could be opportunity that got Josh Dobbs back to Cleveland. It could be a lack of offer from the Titans. We don't know that to be so. These are just options that are on the table. But either way, Malik Willis, when last we saw, is not good enough to be a backup quarterback in the NFL. Not good enough to start NFL games, not good enough to operate a pro-style passing game at this point in his career. Doesn't mean he can't get there, but they need him ready now. They need him ready. Hell, they needed him ready before now. They needed him ready last season. So what do? Because you're not really in a position to draft one. 6 picks with the amount of need all over the place at this point. If they were to take a quarterback, given Malik's presence on the roster, it would have to be because Malik Willis is no longer going to be a Tennessee Titan. Like that, it's not tenable. that they would do that. It's either that player that they were to draft, hypothetically, would be the backup quarterback, and then Malik Willis would be relegated to practice squad or otherwise. Do you bring in a veteran? Do you theoretically ride with 3 quarterbacks on the active roster? I can't imagine or envision a situation where that's so. Or do you, and what's most likely at this point, do you let things play out with the veteran quarterback free agency and see what direction the draft order takes? Do you keep Malik Willis in place and sign a practice squad vet to your, or sign a quarterback to your practice squad, a veteran quarterback to your practice squad, and hope that you don't need him and that Malik Willis makes enough progress to be the 2 discernibly? That would be option 3, is the best possible scenario in all of this. Option 3 is the thing that I think that the most amount of people would say is the best solution to what the Titans' backup quarterback problem is. I said this when they drafted him. Drafting Malik Willis gives me zero aspirations for him as a future franchise quarterback, and that was prior to seeing him play. A third-round pick on a quarterback is, I mean, it's not a throwaway. It's not Cole McDonald in the 7th round, but it's not a first-round draft pick. You don't have to stick with that guy if it doesn't pan out. It's a toss-up, essentially. He could, turn into Dak Prescott. He could wash out like many, many other 3rd round, 2nd round, even 1st round quarterbacks have done before him. It's worth a try, but it's not something that you have to be married to. It's not something that you have to look around and say, hey, that guy is going to be the future quarterback of the Tennessee Titans for 8 to 10 years to come. I'm sure it's not the way that Atlanta's looking at Desmond Ridder. They're going to try it. He's inexpensive. They've got talent-ish around him on the roster, but you don't have to be married to Desmond Ridder if you don't want to. Pittsburgh and Kenny Pickett is really the only situation from last year's quarterback draft class where you look around and say, okay, they have to at least try and make this thing work. That's first-round draft capital, even if I think Kenny was the 20th overall selection in that draft as the first quarterback taken off the board. Even if he's not the most talented quarterback ever, the most talented first-round quarterback ever, you've got first-round capital invested in that guy. You damn sure better get something out of it. That's not Malik Willis. It's not Desmond Ridder. It's not any of those other quarterbacks that are littered across last year's draft class. But I think that they have to kind of prepare themselves for a situation where Malik Willis is not ready. And I don't know that being reactive as opposed to proactive in the veteran quarterback market is the best option on the table for them thus far.
You're talking about bringing someone in that has won games as a starter at some point in this league.
But it doesn't even have to be that. I would have been content with them trying again with Josh Dobbs, and Josh Dobbs has not won games in this league. Josh Dobbs has just recently got his first NFL starts, but Josh Dobbs can play quarterback. So I've seen it.
Give me someone who has. Give me the mold.
All right, give me
the level.
Can you gotta buy me a little more time than just asking for things like that. I can pull this up in just a second if you give it to me. I do the radio show. The two of you go. People have been clamoring.
What do you want?
No. People have been clamoring for the Robert Lucas show. Give them the thing that they want. I'll remove myself from the equation, and let's see how far the two of you get. Go ahead.
What do you want, a Teddy Bridgewater? You want a Jacoby Brissett? You want a Sam Darnold? Like, just tell me the level, the mold that you want. Can you not name me a backup quarterback in this league? You want an Andy Dalton? You want a Jameis Winston? You want a Case Keenum?
You're not getting away with just reading names into the microphone.
I'm not reading any names. They're all coming to my brain because obviously they couldn't pop into your brain.
Teddy Bridgewater, yes.
Hold on. I wanted to do our show. It's time to play horse or rock band.
Oh, what's this?
I'm going to give you the name of a horse or rock band. You got to tell me which one it is. Voter. Is Voter a horse or a rock band?
Rock band.
It's a racehorse. Better luck next time. Go for gin, the drink, not the rummy game.
Rock band.
It's also a racehorse. You're very bad at this
Is this just a list of racehorses?
Sonny's Halo.
Rock band.
Lucas. It's a racehorse.
Okay, this isn't fun.
Oh, your show isn't fun?
So Teddy Bridgewater is what you settled on.
Oh, that list was all racehorses.
Oh, great. Well, I hope the Titans don't listen to you and pay Teddy Bridgewater $10 million to be their backup quarterback this year.
I would be fine with Teddy Bridgewater. I would be fine. I mean, bleep. Depending on what the price point is, I'd consider Carson Wentz.
You might as well sign Cam Newton.
No, you might. No.
What do you mean? Did you watch
No.
Teddy Bridgewater play for Tua last year? He was horrible.
He was concussed.
He was. Maybe I don't know what to tell you, dude. I don't know what to tell you. Teddy Bridgewater.
I'd rather have
Teddy
the quarterback
left
who's
glove.
not broken going into the game than the quarterback who is broken into the game, which is Cam Newton. Cam Newton is fundamentally broken.
Robert, who's more worth $10 million as your backup, Carson Wentz or Cam Newton?
Cam Newton's a red zone weapon.
Oh, shut up.
And think about the morale
Just
on the
shut the hell
sideline.
up.
Think about that. They'd be dabbing.
The
they'd
morale
be
on the sideline.
Whole sideline be
Do you know
dabbing.
how many damn letter to the editors people like Bethany Plorin or whatever her name is would write to the Charlotte Observer?
Good.
Still.
Newspapers are dying. They need
Flying out
any
of the
help
chute.
they can get. Bring Cam in, put him in on the 1 yard line, turn him into a running back. I don't care. Good luck.
I would take Nathan Damn Peterman. I would take
You're
the
just
Peterman.
saying
What would you pay
people's
him?
Names
What would I
now.
pay him? $2 million.
Oh, no, now that's the backup quarterback salary.
Wow.
No, now $2 million is the Peterman salary.
This segment's petered out.
Oh, bleep you. You know why it petered out? Because you dropped a horse or rock band turd into the middle of
Do
it.
you want to play horse or rock band?
Nah.
Yeah, I don't have it in me.
Last call for phone calls, 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. We'll update the polls, and we'll take those phone calls coming up next.
村上打った村上
Was that the Japanese call of the World Baseball Classic?
You know it.
A win over Mexico.
Walked it off.
Hey, man. We have kind of backed ourselves into a corner as a show against the baseball consuming audience on a regular basis.
The community.
We've made we've been honest about the lack of interest that we generally have in the sport of baseball. Collectively, the three of us. Yeah, I don't know Robert's position on baseball. I can't imagine that he's somebody who is overwhelmingly interested.
He just walked out. So
okay, very good. I'm glad that with 15 seconds to go or 15 minutes to go, he was to say, "Yeah,
today.
I'm done." The comment section is funny, but yes, that is the Japanese call of the World Baseball Classic. Japan over Mexico last night. The USA advancing past Cuba in the previous night. But I will tell you, so the World Baseball Classic has been on Fox and like the Fox family of networks for about 6 weeks. And I didn't know anything about it. I knew that it was the first time that they've done it in a while due to COVID and different travel restrictions and things like that for countries to participate. But once I found out I only had to care about it for 6 weeks, and I saw the crowds and the energy that were brought. Cuba playing a baseball game in Miami is not something that I think they do very often. I don't know that that's ever happened before like that. And the amount of electricity that's been around these baseball games, I have to imagine that the United States team, the players on the United States team are looking around and being like, the hell? We can't get 10,000 people to Marlins Park. There's 45,000 Cuban fans in here screaming the entire time. The World Baseball Classic is as interested as I've ever been in baseball in my entire life. I don't know how it is that baseball is so much more fun there, and I understand it's a much smaller sample size. It's 162 versus 6 weeks. But, like, how do we get the transitive property to apply from what's happening in the World Baseball Classic to the MLB? Because if MLB felt anything like that, I think there would be a groundswell of support. I think the World Baseball Classic has really capitalized on the viral moment that you need, the social media moment you need to attract the attention of young people outside of just playing the baseball that you're already going to have a built-in audience for.
I mean, it's something about an international sport that's played at a high level in several different countries, right? Like American football, not really an international sport. Basketball, an international sport, but played at a far higher level here than anywhere else in the world. The U.S. cruises to gold every single Olympics. Obviously, soccer, an international sport, played at a high level. There's a reason the World Cup's the most watched sporting event on planet Earth. Baseball is a sport that is played on a very high level in multiple countries, like Japan and Mexico and Cuba and Dominican Republic and Korea. So it's been fascinating to see that all come together. And a guy like Shohei Ohtani, one of the most stoic athletes that I've ever seen play in American professional sports, displaying the most emotion by far that I've ever seen from that guy, because he helped his country earn a berth in the World Baseball Classic Championship against the U.S., where he's going to be playing some of his teammates, including Mike Trout. I mean, it's just unmatched, the passion that comes with playing for your country in any sport. And that's what baseball has definitely been missing whenever they haven't done the World Baseball Classic.
So it's the USA and Japan. Japan is the home team tonight. Where are they playing? What's the location?
It's in Miami, I believe.
It's
right?
in Miami. I'm not sure because I know they've had venues around the world that have hosted. Yeah, okay. Lone Depot Park in Miami is where this is the first game of the final.
By the way, when's the last time that stadium was hopping like that?
No, that's what I'm saying.
Like for a Marlins game.
I literally, thank you for listening to the show. That's literally what I just said.
You didn't even mention the Marlins.
I brought up Marlins players looking around at their park and being like,
Marlins players. I thought you said U.S. players.
Well, I said U.S. players just generally, but they're at Lone Depot, so I was implying the Marlins. Marlins are a particularly woebegone fan base Anyway, the lack of interest in baseball in South Florida, in the Marlins, in MLB has been evident. And to see that outpouring of emotion and excitement was something that I think Miami baseball fans have to be jarred by, looking around and being like, how come we can't get that? Eric in Nashville is next as we wrap things up for phone calls, 615-737-1045. Hey, Eric.
Hey, Buck, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have my phone on mute. I'm not sure if I have my phone on mute or whatever.
It's okay, buddy.
Hey, so I know all my friends from work will be listening and probably give me a hard time for calling in, which is fine, but just calling to share a little perspective. I've actually attended 2 of the World Baseball Classic games. First one was by coincidence. I was traveling to Scottsdale with my family for spring break last week and had planned to go to a spring training game and found out that the World Baseball Classic was taking place in Phoenix, so kind of bought tickets and on whim. Saw the the game against Canada on Monday night. A Monday night in Phoenix, 35,000 people in the stands, really just having a great time.
Yeah.
Team USA killed them in that game, you know. And so I was back in town late last week looking at the cold, wet weather facing us on the weekend, called my son, used some airline and hotel points, and booked a random trip to Miami for the game against Venezuela on Saturday night.
Awesome.
So, quite a trip. The atmosphere in the game was unbelievable. It was at least 3-1, if not 4-1, Venezuelan fans in the park. They sang, they chanted, they danced the entire game. They had an unbelievable time. The energy was unlike anything I've ever done. I've been very privileged in my life. I've been to several Masters weekends. I've been to World Series games. Unbelievable experience. You got to check it out tonight, guys. Thank you.
Thank you for the call. What a cool story.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like that energy that you get in college baseball sometimes.
Well, that's my thing. Like, is it distinctly an American baseball thing? Or are we so repressed about our baseball, the rest of the world's just having a great time out there?
Crowds make things more fun. I do think MLB has managed to make it really boring. Like crowds are more engaging and more enjoyable in the college game and obviously in the World Baseball Classic when fans are there supporting their country. You go to a Major League Baseball game, it's nice. You get a beer, you get a hot dog, you enjoy the sun. But it's just the energy. It's not even close.
Polls.
Oh, yeah, baby. This poll update is shagadelic, baby. I have a Danger Powers here. I'm Austin Powers. Danger is my middle name, baby. This is one poll I'm interested in, baby. It's shagadelic. I haven't had an update in 2023 yet. Wink, wink. Oh, behave. Take it away, Lucas Panzica. Yeah, baby. Yeah.
You know, that's slowly developing into my favorite one.
No, it's still Star Wars.
Presented by Two Rivers Ford, who sells below MSRP on any non-specialty new Ford. Has free agency changed what you think the Titans should do with the number 11 pick? 58% say no. Brian says yes, now they can take the best available.
Well, it does remove the pressure of absolutely having to take an offensive lineman from your draft needs with Dillard and Brunskill now under contract, but I don't think it should outright remove them from the best offensive line situation possible, given they still have plenty of need there.
Which team currently has the least talented offense in the AFC South? 43% say it's the Titans, 26% say it's the Colts, 25% say it's the Texans, 6% say it's the Jags. So majority believe the Jags have the most talented offense.
Yes, I would agree with that assessment. Adding Calvin Ridley probably puts them a little over the top, and retaining Evan Ingram, Titans pre-draft least talented offense in the AFC South.
What in sports made you say, oh no, this weekend? Karen, referencing the World Baseball Classic again, says when Edwin Diaz got hurt celebrating with his team this weekend. Yeah, that was tough.
That does suck, especially because it's right before the Major League Baseball season, because there's been a couple of instances where players who have signed big contracts have gotten hurt, but Edwin Diaz celebrating while getting injured, that's a tough one.
Did Nick Saban say no such thing as wrong place, wrong time on purpose? 91% say yes.
I agree with the 91%. I just don't think it was an intentional shot at Nate Oates.
What is the most entertaining form of baseball? College ball, MLB, or the World Baseball Classic? 39% majority are going college baseball. 31% say the MLB. 30% say international ball.
I personally have found the World Baseball Classic to be more entertaining than anything else I've watched. Second only
college baseball, and then I'd put MLB considerably behind both of those things.
I agree. Those are the polls.
Excellent. That's the show. Back at it tomorrow. We will be joined by Mike Sando of The Athletic. We'll talk about all the major transactions that have been made thus far across the NFL. And we got a bunch of Nashville SC tickets to give away during the dumbest thing in sports this week. Hope you'll join us at 10 a.m. If I don't catch you then, prime time tonight at 8 p.m. See you guys.